Welcome, everyone, to episode 161 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, and I'm coming to you from my podcast domicile, which you might not know is located in Brooklyn, New York. But no, I am not the only one who is walking around into these tableaus. And, Steve, I just walked in the room, so I have to ask you, have you ever been kinky?
That's a lot to bring me in with. But you know what? My name is Steve Guntley. I'm a certified Femalien, so you can make what you will of that. This is the podcast about talking lamps, captivating cookies, and electric sex rays. That's because this is the podcast about Femalien, one of Surrender Cinema's most successful erotic adventures, and I think a weirdly formative movie for everybody on this episode. We're going to talk a lot about that and get into the whole sordid universe of Surrender Cinema, something that we've kind of like skirted around, but this is like right in the soup. So I'm excited to talk about it, and I'm excited because we have a very cool guest joining us for this episode, first timer. Who's joining us here today?
Well, this is Asta Paredes. I am an actress and filmmaker. I got my start in Trauma's Return to Nukem High, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I've also worked with Glass Eye Pix with Larry Fessenden on Blackout, and you may have seen me in a Home Depot commercial. I will not confirm or deny that. And I am just a filmmaker with Abandoned House Productions and various other things. So, yeah.
Amazing. See, this is why this is such a better format now, because that was so succinct, right? Like, it's not me tripping over my goes, oh, you might have seen this person doing this thing. And so this is just better for everyone involved. And wow, what a first time episode. Like, of all the first timers, like coming in hot on this one. And like, so you and I mean, we know each other from outside of the podcast. So we talked about this. And, I think it's some fun inside baseball. Occasionally we talk to all the guests about whether or not they chose their movie, or if they spun the wheel, or if we chose something that we thought would be a good fit. But, I sent you the spreadsheet, Asta, and you had it down to between this and one other movie, and just like let our listeners know what they could have been getting today.
So it was between this and Trancers 4.
Interesting.
And because I love Trancers, I was introduced to it from a mutual friend a few years ago, a screening at Alamo Drafthouse of the original Trancers. And I don't know, it's in that sort of realm of like Bruce Campbell-esque types that I like. And I just really enjoyed that little world. So I thought, I haven't seen Trancers 4. Maybe that would be a fun one to do. But then I chose Femalien. Yeah. I think that's a good choice. We have not gotten to Transfers 4 or 5 yet, or 6. I don't know. Are we going to do 6? Because that one's kind of I think
we should. I think we're kind of, as we look ahead and realize that there is an expiration date on this show, on the mission statement of this show. I think any chance to throw anything that's even kind of tangentially related in there is probably good. I know we talked about Ghoulies for how originally we said no, and now we're going to see. What's that?
We have to see them go to college. I want to know about the Ghoulies syllabi,
Well, that's Ghoulies 3.
Oh, that's
Ghoulies
right.
4 is the one that's like not connected at all. Like, they don't even look like Ghoulies, and I don't think they're I could be wrong about this, and you feel free to fire off some angry tweets or something akin to that. I don't think 4 is like a Beekler Designs. I could be wrong about that.
I think you're right I think that's like a Munchies to Munchies situation, where it's just like, technically part of the same continuum, but these are entirely different designs.
100%. But I think for that sense, like Trancers 6, even though there's no Tim Thomerson, I think is something we should cover. And we will do Trancers 4 sometime in the near future, I'm predicting. And because they did that thing where I think probably, being influenced by the Kill Bill Whole Bloody Affair, Charles Band went and did a thing with Trancers 4 and 5 where they kind of edited them together into like a 2-hour and 40-minute movie called The Whole Deathly Affair.
Oh, yeah.
And so we'll probably, I would imagine we can, especially if we get someone on who is pretty well versed in Trancers 4 and 5. We can even maybe talk about the differences, but I think that's going to be how we end up covering that. But no, we are covering something incredibly different for this show. And Steve, you mentioned how we sort of skirted around Surrender Cinema here. Like Torchlight is one thing. Beach Babes from Beyond is a very, very silly movie with some nudity in it and sexual situations, and I guess maybe sex scenes, but not, explicit necessarily.
No.
And then we got what was the one, Huntress, which I thought was like a pretty well made
kind of stately
Torchlight
and
movie.
gothic. Yeah.
But now as we like dip our toe into Surrender Cinema, to me the biggest noticeable difference immediately is like they're going a little further, they're pushing the envelope a little more. So now when someone's fingers are being dug into the elastic of someone's underwear and being pulled down, instead of a hard cut, we just get a flaccid dick.
Yeah, that's the big difference. And Asta, you're here in time for, I think you chose a good episode if you want to see both of us get a little red-faced and a little awkward trying to talk about these movies. I had a feeling.
That's why.
We both try to be very, I guess, fairly academic about these movies to the degree that we can, because these are pretty sordid, they're pretty seedy, but they're also representing a very, very specific sub-genre of cinema that's like not really documented very well. It's not really maintained very well. There's not a whole lot of stories like behind the scenes of the making of movies like this. They're filling a need that I feel like has been completely obliterated by the existence of the internet. And even before then, I'm not sure entirely what the need was, because hardcore pornography existed in the 90s. You were probably getting it from the same place you were getting this for the most part. And yet it's like these are very different vibes. And I've always been a little curious about like who these are for. To a degree, I want to say, are these, and I don't want to like, gild the lily too much or anything like that. Are these like adult films directed at teenagers specifically? I don't know.
I think not just teenagers, but I think people who may not have like reached their potential sexually by a certain age, like late bloomers maybe, or people who are high anxiety, who need something to get out of their head into their other head, like something that's sort of like, because I was noticing something when I was watching that I was just trying to put myself in that mindset. Like, what if I was cast in this? Like, how would I? They all talked in a very hypnotic, seductive voice the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was very, very almost clinical. Like, please, this is how you're going to get a hard on. This is how you're going to do this. It's, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like watching it going like, holy shit, this is like a video version of like how to get a hard on for dummies, like in a very lulled, hypnotic, everything, like the framing, the way they talked, the way they moved, sort of like what's her face in Mars Attacks, like very like
like Lisa Marie. Yeah.
It was very like, it might as well be like waving a watch in front of my face and just like let like your cheeks swell up, like it was. And that's like, a little bit
with subtext and text in this movie. Like, because she does hypnotize some people a few times.
You're totally right. That's an aspect of it that I only thought of a little bit, and you articulated it a bit better than I originally kind of wrote it down in my notes, which I was saying, even the little like machine that Vanessa Taylor talks to has like a Douglas Rain HAL 9000 voice, where he's just like, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm applying the lube as fast as I can.
Yeah. Well, it's also like, dare I say, very symptomatic of like a sanitized, puritanical American take of like what sex is. It has to be still controlled.
It is like, weirdly wholesome in a way. Like
Yeah,
all of
like-
these movies have a strange kind of like, okay, you could it's like the modern equivalent of like a lady in the 1900s showing her ankle, you know. It's like, you know, oh,
yeah. Because
only
like
just a little bit. We're just titillating, you know, but we're
yeah.
not gonna give away the farm here. But
Well, I think this movie
thing.
describes it. You know, the whole setting of this movie. I think it's a line that Jackie Lavelle says at one point where she goes, "Very astral."
Mhm.
Very
Yeah.
astral.
Well, which in turn, like astral and like new world and new wave and all of that is just like sort of the white Wonder Bread version of like Eastern traditions, right? So you have like the Kama Sutra, but then like how do we like ruin that a little bit? Let's, you know, literally have her let's have this guy grab a woman's breast in the middle of a photo shoot, and that's gonna titillate him, literally. Like that's enough. Like we don't need any like actual positions that cause realistic pleasure. We just need the idea of it.
I love that scene too, because it's like, oh, a stranger wanders into a set and says, "Excuse me, I have a note." Whoop, proceed.
Like, that's the best part. The photographer is like, she's like, "Can I make a suggestion?" And the photographer's like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that happened in a production of Betrayal I did a couple of months ago, and it really it livened up the entire thing. It's like Pinter had imagined it in his head that way.
Well, Steve, you talked about the wholesomeness of this movie, and there's something specific that I never thought I would say that I'm going to say in a minute when we talk about it a little more. But why don't you fire off some stats about this movie before we get started?
Absolutely. So Femalien was released September 3rd, 1996. It's directed by Sybil Richards. It's written by Richards and Randall Fontana. And it stars Vanessa Taylor, Jacqueline Lavelle, Matt Shue, Kurt Schwobel, Taylor St. Clair, Brittany Andrews, Rob Lee, Lena, Holly Cat, and a great porn name here, Everett Rod, 2 Ds. Femalien. All right. So the thing that I was kind of realizing about Femalien, and I texted this to Jared last night while y'all were hanging out even, it's this, I believe, is my ground zero full moon exposure. This is my first exposure to anything before I knew what Puppet Master was, before I knew what anything was. It was Femalien, because in the mid 90s, my family finally got satellite TV. And for those old heads out there, you might remember there were some pay-per-view channels way up high in the dial. And they would often show you 5-minute previews of the movies you're about to watch. So whether it's a smut or a sporting event or an actual movie, like they would show you 5 minutes and then you would have to pay for it. So 13-year-old me discovered this movie, not really knowing what it was, and discovering after those interminable long Star Wars-y credits that you could see boobs. All right. And this is a pre-internet era, at least in my household. And so that was a real awakening moment for me. So I have the first 5 minutes of this movie fairly burned into my brain from like the 1 or 2 times I saw this when I was young, because it really is kind of like a looking behind the beaded curtain kind of thing. It's like, oh my God, there's a whole world back here I never knew about. But this was my first time watching the entire rest of the movie. I really had no idea what happened beyond the brief scene at the side of the pool. But we'll get into a little bit of that as we go. Now, some of the reporting on the transition from Torchlight Films to Surrender Cinema has been a bit touch and go. It's understandable why. This is not a particularly well-documented niche in the film industry. And even Dave J admits in his book, he's like, yeah, there are some gaps, like, because not everybody talks about these, not everybody wants to talk about these, and not everybody is alive that made these anymore. So it's kind of hard to say, but
I would like to nominate myself as to be a like documentary filmmaker to make like a We Kill for Love style long form documentary about all of the like surrender cinema softcore, but not just limited to that, like Skinamax movies too, like in there. I think We Kill for Love
so noble.
That Venn diagram kind of overlaps, because that is the thing. Like when you were saying, like these movies, sometimes it's hard to figure out who exactly they're for. And the thing about some of the more, I guess, if not prestigious, at least legitimate titles can at least say, oh, well, you know, yeah, there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of this, but this is an erotic thriller, or this is something like that. This is not. This is like an erotic comedy, and it's very, because all of the scenes that aren't sex scenes, which is about 30% of this movie, are the Femalien existing on Earth. Basically, she exists as an Amelia Bedelia character.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. It's a
everything is literal.
situational comedy.
Exactly. And
Well
it's
put.
and like I will say the thing I like about this movie is that it is very positive. I think this is a sex positive. I think it's a people positive. I think this is a movie that's going for like fun hangout vibes. If it's completely nonsensical, that's not really a problem because everybody is like being kind to each other and it's not really even the bad guy. Yeah, there's consent. There's like pleasure is being like front loaded and like the I think it's nice in that sense. Like I think this is not a movie that'll make you feel like you have to take a shower after. And
this is not Cave Girl Island.
We've certainly seen some of these that make us feel yucky. I didn't really feel yucky from this one.
Well, it didn't seem like she was forcing anybody to do anything. She was just sort of like awakening a deeper desire.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's how I interpreted the film.
Exactly. But this does have a little bit of a different energy than the Torchlight movies that we've talked about. So Torchlight, for those just tuning in for the Femalien episode, Torchlight was kind of the erotic sub-label of Full Moon that was going on concurrent with their Paramount deal. So that's what we think of as like the golden age of Full Moon. That's when most of the best Puppet Master movies came out and Bad Channels and all of these movies that we've covered that are kind of in this peak video store era. And that's when Torchlight was really kind of at its peak. And we talked about Beach Babes from Beyond, which is probably the biggest movie from that era. Test Tube Queens from the year 2000. For me,
like you were saying, Steve, how this is probably ground zero for a Full Moon movie for you. Beach Babes from Beyond was that for me.
Right.
Before I knew who Charles Band was or knew what Torchlight was or any of this stuff, Beach Babes from Beyond, which was a couple of years, I think it was 93. Beach Babes from Beyond came out. So. That was a movie where it was like, I don't remember if it had just premiered on like Cinemax or somewhere, but I remember at school talking to a guy I was like acquaintances with in school. I was probably in like 8th grade or something. And we had this like incredibly juvenile conversation where we're like, yo, man, did you see Beach Babes from Beyond?
You're right.
So dumb. But it was like, it was kind of a very, like, that was a really formative one there. And I could 100% see how a Femalien would be that for someone too. And I in hindsight was like, oh, well, there's Femalien and Jackie Lavelle is in this. I did not have a specific memory of this movie in particular, but so many movies like it because I, as a, little pervert, wanted to see as much of this stuff as I could. So there's really your answer is when Asta, you were trying to explain, you were trying to go deep when really the answer was just little perverts.
Well,
just little weirdos. Yeah.
The thing is that like, so a little background on me. So I am a child of Ecuadorian immigrants, but I was raised in Europe and then I was culture shocked into living in Texas. So I saw firsthand like a very body positive, sex positive culture into a very shame-based abstinence only education. And yeah, huge. Even being young, you notice those things, right? Like bodies are suddenly politicked, like everybody analyzes everything. So for me, like my gateway sexual prowess was introduced by watching like really good drama. Like I remember seeing the Gia movie with Angelina Jolie and just like being like, whoa, that's a woman. Like I remember having like this like awakening. And then also for me, it was like, I watched a lot of Almodovar films, like Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. Like, these things like changed me. But it's so different than Femalien because Femalien is so like loving you. Whereas like Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down is like, I'm going to kidnap you and make you love me. Like it's very different. So I'm, no passion, no passion.
This in a lot of ways, I think Femalien and like Torchlight and Surrender Cinema could kind of be looked at as like not remedial sex because that sounds like you're being sent back. It's sex one. This is introducing you to the or I guess I should say sexiness 101. Because Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. That's a good example of a movie that's like that's opening up different ideas of what it means to be sexy, you know, like maybe that's not like the first, if I may quote Charlie Sheen from the recent documentary about him, flipping the menu, you know, there's one side of the menu, and then you're flipping the menu, and there's like a little bit more spicy stuff on the other side of it.
Yeah,
you know?
This is like the Schoolhouse Rock version of sex education, because like you basically, it's like, I don't know what it was like. I always ask men this question. It's different for everybody, but like when we were like 11 and we all got separated, the boys and the girls, and the girls had to watch like this video about a ballet dancer who gets her period, and then we have to like suddenly learn everything. And the guys, like, they just got to play basketball. Like, I don't know that you guys even learned anything, but we were like horrified. But like, I feel like there's a certain sexual education when it comes to just interacting with women that men like need in an entertainment based like capsule that women take on a very pragmatic information brochure. Like, you know, like I had to read a What's Happening to Your Body book for girls. Men don't do that. You have to learn it through like the what is the sugar makes the medicine go down. Like you need to like have it.
Like, no, they were like, no, go, school's over, go skateboard. We're going to force all the girls to read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
They're like, all right, you boys all got your condoms, right? Okay, go play.
Okay, cool.
That was about the extent of ours. We never had to watch the ballet video. At least I didn't. But it does really speak to, as you get older and like gain experience and, you know, live in the world a little bit, you come to realize that women's sexual wants are incredibly different from men's sexual wants, or at least the images that we're being fed through the media are incredibly different. And once you stop thinking of it in that like monocultural way, then that's when, you know, you can start kind of having a mature adult relationship. And I think this movie exists in that weird nether region. I'm not going to use that word, but either way,
lots of nether regions.
Limbo. Let's say limbo.
This one,
there's a lot of
the beautiful mid 90s, right? The beautiful mid 90s, which were, you know, I think that's a reason I told Jared why I picked this movie, because when you see desire and like females ability to have autonomy over their desire start to be like curtailed in society, you start to notice other things go down as well. And I feel like 96 was a pretty good year on a lot of levels, like in a cultural way, female rights way at the very least. And now it's like, I have to watch Heated Rivalry to like get some, you know, like I'm like, geez, like it's a
world of difference. And like you can imagine, like, you know, you can imagine kids coming of age these days are going to have like this would feel like an artifact from an alien spaceship. Like this does really feel like it has so little in common with like our understanding of sex. And I think it's a good thing that like younger people now have a more well-rounded, realistic kind of like understanding of how like human sexuality works. And I think shows like Heated Rivalry are kind of speaking to that to a degree.
But like, they're also scared of it. They're also like, you listen to like Gen Z surveys, like they talk about how they hate seeing sex on screen. They don't they feel comfortable labeling their gender expression, but they don't always feel comfortable with labeling their sexuality because they don't feel. And how can you blame them? This is not a very sexy time to be alive. Let's be real.
No, of course not.
Like, but what's wild about this movie is I was just thinking about how a lot of these movies that, you know, stuff that I've worked on, and then stuff that like working on a trauma film, you know, it came out the same year as Blue is the Warmest Color, right? And so that was seen as more legitimized, but then a lot of people in the LGBTQ community preferred our depiction of same sex, like both in the desire, in the interaction, in everything. But because it was dramatic, it was, you know, and sanitized in a different way, and it wasn't satire. So the same thing with Femalien. I just watched Bugonia. And it's like, basically, if you really want to go there, it's the same plot as far as like, I don't want to give spoilers, but it's like a similar idea and like a fear of a woman and like the sexual impact that woman could have, instead of the comfortable, warm, sexuational comedy that we have with Femalien, which feels more like I don't mind being invaded by this alien. Like,
Yeah.
Well, you bring up a good point about Gen Z, and I'll tell you one thing that I know Gen Z would hate, and that's like minute 3 to minute 15 of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think they might be on board with the mustache. I think those mustaches are starting to come back. But
Well, no,
Yeah.
well, listen, I was immediately, I almost threw up when I started watching this scene, not because of anything that the two of them were doing, but it was just that this guy, for no fault of his own, looked way too much like Andrew Schultz. And I don't want to
oh
see that
yeah,
guy's face anymore anywhere.
I guess he did. I was just thinking, it's like, oh wow, like John Waters is Latinx and buff now, like, and wearing a suit made out of grimace skin, apparently. No, but I'll have more things to say about that. I do want to back up a little bit and talk about a couple of key figures. Surrender cinema universe, because these do have a very different vibe. Like, I think if you watch a Torchlight movie next to a Surrender cinema movie, you're getting a very different vibe. And one of the big reasons of that is a guy named Pat Siciliano. Now, it was a music producer back in the 70s. He's actually the nephew of the bodybuilder Charles Atlas, who had one of like the first like fitness empires, in American history. And he first kind of came into the Full Moon fold when he spearheaded the very short-lived Moonstone Records label in the early 90s. He was the guy in charge of producing Full Moon's original soundtracks, I think of which exist 3, right?
Netherworld and Bad Channels, and there's another one in there somewhere. But
yeah,
what's that? Which one did you say?
Yeah, I think those two were the ones I'm thinking. Netherworld and Bad Channels. There might be a third.
So Bad Channels is out there because that's such a wild collection of artists and songs. But then and Blue Oyster Cult did that music too. But for Netherworld, that was the David Bryan one, the guy from Bon Jovi,
right,
who did that music. And I know
David Arkenstone, the kind of like experimental composer, he did one of those movies, and I think he got a Moonstone sound. I forget which one he did, but yeah, so Siciliano, like he's brought in to run this record label, which immediately kind of like crashes and burns. But luckily, Siciliano also had connections to the world of pornography. He used to like work for Penthouse and for a lot of things like that. And so he offered to shift his focus over to Torchlight. Now, we've noted this many times in the past. Charles Band admits it to himself. He's very, very shy about female nudity, about including like kind of gratuitous nudity in his movies at all. He does it because he's also like in the Roger Corman, Lloyd Kaufman vein. He understands that like the people who are going to turn out have certain expectations, and it's like, that's fine, whatever. But he was always a little squicked out, I think, by Torchlight. So like he handed the reins off to David Dakota for a long time and just said like, do what you want. And apparently what David Dakota wanted to do was make some very broad, silly comedies with some incredibly perfunctory scenes of women showering in between, and then increasingly his films became very, very gay, which gotta love it, but did not really translate over to the audience they were looking to get. And so Siciliano came in, and he was willing to push things a little further than Charles Band was. And so once Siciliano took over, Charlie made a deal with this German distribution company to be the sole producer of all of their softcore needs. They had a baseline budget. They had a handful of scripts, and Charlie Band's like, okay, you handle it, I'm out. And that's why when we were putting together our spreadsheet for all the different episodes of the show, there's a huge chunk of Surrender Cinema things that never really came onto our radar because Charles Band is not credited as the producer on most of these movies. He just doesn't really, want to be associated with them directly. And
Steve, I don't want to like derail what you're saying right now, but like as we go further in the show too, like for this one, for a conversation about Femalien, it totally works. And I do think it's sort of like, it's one of the kind of cornerstones of this subgenre, and it's important that we do this episode. And it's also other film. This is a series, so we'll cover more of them down the line. But a lot of the Surrender Cinema stuff, as it continued, became increasingly more hardcore. Like there's a movie called Haunted Hotties that we almost covered a couple months ago, and I was like, well, I'll pop it on because it's probably like a Beach Babes from Beyond silly comedy. I don't know where the line is drawn at hardcore, softcore, besides, if you show an erect penis, I think you venture into what's considered hardcore.
Right.
And by those standards, I would say I think what I saw was hardcore. And I was like, I don't know if we're going to cover this on the show or not.
It got to a point where like, okay, I think some of these we might just need to like lift off the spreadsheet because like I don't want this show to become a porn review show. And that's kind of what it basically would end up being. I think we're all too shy and goofy to be able to kind of sit and have a conversation about.
Unless I suddenly become the resident porn expert for this series that you've got.
You know what? God bless you. There are.
Yeah.
We have several women who come on our show and like these are the ones that they want to talk about. Like they volunteer to talk about these movies and we're like, God bless you, because it would be really weird for a bunch of guys just be sitting around talking about these movies by ourselves.
Well, because the stories that I would be telling in episodes like this would be about like, oh yeah, and then there was like how I figured out how to descramble my cable box. So me and my weirdo friends would put on the Spice Channel at midnight when my parents went to sleep and watch pornography together. Which
truly
is
the
last
makes
thing
innovation happen. Like the internet happened because we needed to watch porn. Like there are all these things that are because of the specifically male sexual desire. If we're going to talk about commercialism, but like. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Like there's so many things that people like, oh, we need like the Pamela Anderson sex tape. Like we needed everything to work so that the people could watch it.
Right.
I don't know why I'm putting myself in this. Like I was like a baby when that came out.
You were clamoring for the Pamela.
I was clamoring for them.
Like mama.
But it's wild. Like I mean, I've watched films. Like my favorite film is Sex and Lucia by Julio Medem.
Oh, great.
And that cuts to real sex. So that cuts to porn actors doing the penetration and the erect penises and like all of that. So it's very like it bleeds the line. So you are fully watching an experience. But again, if Femalien is the remedial like Schoolhouse Rock, like Sex and Lucia is like the Anna Karenina like of like
100%
understanding. You know what I mean? So it's like I was already reading Anna Karenina.
If there ever was one.
I really love the Schoolhouse Rocks thing. I just keep thinking, oh, I'm just a boob. Just a boob on a hill. You're like,
I mean, it's funny because like the way
I was
introduced is the two women. The two women like have that great interaction, and you like, and then she's just like takes her top off, and it's just like.
It is record time to where when they show the Femalien lands and she's in the house and she's watching the couple by the pool, I don't know. I mean, I think I've been applying suntan lotion wrong. If I'm being honest, like I think there
should be all over your bathing suit. Yeah.
There's a sexy way. It
should be all over the chair.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny the rate in which her clothes come off. Like there should they just drop off. Like there should be a slide whistle.
Totally.
It's like they got a smirk out of me because I'm like I sort of appreciate the movie's like lack of pretension, even though like this is a deep movie because we take the idea of the Femalien like coming in and like hornying up all of these tableaus and we put her on essentially a Brechtian set later.
Yeah, basically. Very spare, very expressionistic. And and I think a lot of this, the format of this and the way that the surrender movies feel a little different is part of Pat Siciliano's formula for making movies like this, which is have a sex scene on page 1, have a sex scene every 10 pages after that. That's his whole thing. It's like whatever plot you want to put into that can fit in between those lines, that's great. But we know what we're making and we're putting TNA kind of first and foremost. And and if you have a nice story, that's a nice little bonus as well. I think I do want to call out there is a very interesting and weird mystery at the center of this movie. And that
Glad you're bringing it up.
Director Sybil Richards, who worked on most of the Surrender Cinema films. Sometimes it's spelled with a C, sometimes it's spelled with an S. But either way, Richards does not have much on her IMDb, and that's likely because Richards is a pseudonym for a male producer. And the fun thing is, so our go-to text, which is Dave J's, it came from the video aisle that has like most of our resources. Even he's not fully able to confirm who Sybil Richards is. He has a theory that it's producer Rick Bitzelberger, who used to work for Penthouse. which seems kind of most likely, but he's never confirmed or denied it, and there's never really been anything. But there was some speculation that it was Charles Band, which like everything we know about Charles Band is like, no, I don't think you would want to be digging deeper into this. David Dakota, no, because like there are no men in tighty whities rubbing their chests in this movie. Like this is very heteronormative to a fault. But yeah, so Bitzelberger seems like he might actually be the correct candidate, but we're going to be encountering a lot of that pseudonym Sybil Richards, and just kind of keep in mind, this is not like some mysterious lady like flitting around behind the wings. This is most likely
like Maggie,
a pseudonym for a producer.
Gyllenhaal and the Deuce.
Exactly. Maggie Gyllenhaal and the Deuce. Yes, exactly that.
I love this mystery though. It's like the DB Cooper of softcore.
It is, yes.
We may never know who this person is, but
if I may, the double DB Cooper. Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
the double D.
Right
thank
there.
you. You nailed it. I'll pretend that was a setup. It was not, but you.
No, let's assume it was.
You took it and you ran. One thing that I did enjoy about the dynamics in this movie was that, not entirely unlike the movie Petticoat Planet that we covered a couple of months ago, which Asta, I don't know if you're familiar with this movie. There is no overlap of cast members in this movie, but it was kind of like Elizabeth Caton and a couple of people who are sort of like the kind of would pop up in Torchlight stuff early on. They it's a Wild West planet inhabited only by women, and then there's a man who falls, like a astronaut Mike Dexter falls to this planet, and then he kind of how should I say this? Everything gets thrown into upheaval. Like the system they have in place, the system of order they have in place is all shaken. And then it's like, but it's a lot of it. It's like the woman is the sheriff and the woman is the mayor. And it's like the woman who's like I don't know, school marm in part of it.
And they're all banging because like it's a planet with no men, so they're all banging.
Without men? Of course.
There's lots of drama already, and he just kind of like comes in and stirs the pot.
But this movie had a similar thing where it was very much like all of these situations and tableaus that the Femalien would walk into were all of these like girl boss led scenes. And I was kind of digging that as like all of the one guy is kind of like your lecherous villain. But then the other guy who is like the
ponytail
with the ponytail, who looked way too much like Triple H when he started working. He first started as a wrestler. Jean-Paul Levique, otherwise known as Triple H. I forget I'm blanking on the name of the character, which is poor planning on my part. Usually I have these things written down. No, MJ doesn't sound right.
MJ's the villain. This is I'm blanking on his name, but he's like the good-hearted beefcake who works at the local diner, which is Drew, thank you. And Jackie Lavelle is playing like the adorable diner owner who apparently they have like a counter and that's it. They have there's not a whole lot of character in this diner. This feels like I love the joke in the movie They Came Together, where like Paul Rudd really wants to open a coffee shop and it winds up just being like a small sad looking counter with an old pot. It kind of looks like a dingy hotel. It's like that's his dream. It's like this crappy looking counter with just a coffee pot on it. That's kind of the sort of diner we have here, but it's still it serves as sort of like a hub and gives you kind of a we need to save the rec center kind of plot device for them to work with. But again, this movie has so little interest in plot that like honestly the fact that our main character is an alien can for the most part just sort of lift out of this.
In fact, I would like to submit, if you want to make it a dramatic version of this, it's like you just Shutter Island it, like she's not an alien. She's just off her meds. And and every time she does the teleportation thing, it's actually just her on speed experiencing it like a teleportation, but she actually like frantically drove places with people like thrown over her shoulder, like in the backseat of the car. Like that would be my twist on it.
What just occurred to me, what this movie is doing, this is sexy being there. This is
Yes.
this is
You nailed
this
it.
is-
I was going to
Vanessa
say this
Taylor
is sexy
is
Benny
sexy
and June,
Seller
but
is
you,
Yeah,
buxom
I
Peter
mean,
Sellers wandering through life, and everybody just kind of assumes that she's this like paragon of sexuality because she's kind of, so like she's
well,
she
she's
just sort of, but she's like
stacked
making
too.
everybody's lives better too.
Well,
She's
Yeah, she has like she's very well endowed in that department. But
yes, sure.
I was gonna say the other thing it reminded me of when you just said that was it reminded me of like my first year of acting school when we would do like Meisner technique.
Yeah.
And like we would be saying like your shirt is blue, your shirt is blue, your shirt is blue. And suddenly people would start making out and we'd be like, what the hell? Like, why is your shirt blue? Like a turn on? Like it was just like this same Femalien, like sexy voice, it was, you would just
it's
get in that
as
mode.
old as time, and it's and it's like that old adage that they always say: the real Femalien were the loads we shot along the way.
Obviously, that's the expression. My
I'm
fiance
sorry,
just
everyone.
she can hear us from the hallway, and she's saying,
I
"Are you
love
saying
the
sci-fi chocolate?" So it's that
Hmm.
too. Yeah. So there's a lot of
yeah,
a lot of good comparison points, but it's
and
like
a small nod to like Victoria's Secret like culture with that lingerie scene. It's like,
yes. Okay,
That's
now
actually
this is
that's a
something
great
that is
point.
this has been living in my head since I saw Mighty Ducks 2.
Mm.
Was this a thing?
Sorry,
Was this really a
That
thing? Like,
that really got me.
I'm sorry.
Mighty Ducks 2, I was not expecting.
Look, I had to swerve on you. But that's what that was the movie, right? Where the boys like go and they go into a lingerie store and they're getting women to like model clothes for them, right? And I'm like, was that ever actually a thing?
People used to model clothes. It was more so in like the 40s, 50s, and 60s where women would model clothes and then you would say, these are my measurements. I would like that. And then they would make you custom versions of that. And then some boutiques, I think had models that would show you, because the idea is that nobody wants what it is on them, but they like the idea of what it looks like on a nice body.
Right. That's the idea.
Then they believe they can buy into the dream of that body. So it's kind of funny the way that scene sort of plays off to me like a version of like an Austin Powers, like fembot, like extreme, like them. You're like, who is this even for? It's like, there's not even a man in the room. Like, this is all just women just womening me up in front of each other. And also the fantasy of the male desire to see women have a secret sexual life with each other. So I think it's like the pillow fights, like the way, I always think of that scene in Friends where Monica and Chandler are joking about sleepovers, and she says, we don't do pillow fights in our underwear, and he looks so depressed. And she's like, no, we do.
Of course we do. Oh yeah.
Well, you're totally right.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
I was just gonna say that scene. Sorry, Steve. That scene where she goes into the store plays really much like that, like what this sort of like warped male fantasy is, where it's like she's just like, oh, are you looking for something specific? And she's like, yes, I think I'm looking for something specific. And then the third woman is like, I was hoping you were. And then it's like
there's a door code that you do, like a secret code you need to use to unlock the sex show. But I mean, they have that moment. Yeah, of course. It's like she goes to buy some clothes and they put on a lingerie for her, which inevitably turns into them like feeling each other up, which felt like a very like male coded fantasy, which all of this really is. Yeah. I will give this movie credit that like they have female intimacy like that. It's kind of like the closing scene of this movie. And I'm like, and actually most of the Torchlight movies that we watched don't actually go so far as to show that like, oh, these are women who are actually attracted to each other and having sex with each other. Most of the time they are just kind of like touching each other and looking at the camera in a very
standing back to back, like with the holding onto like a wall, dry humping each other, not like looking at each other.
Yeah.
Or they're not being directed by like not in the scene. They're not being told by men like, you guys have to make out or let's play spin the bottle. It's like they're choosing to desire each other, which is like a whole other.
And to be clear, I'm not I'm not nominating this movie for a GLAAD award or anything, but I think it has
Yeah,
at least as much of a relationship with like queer female sexuality as Blue is the Warmest Color. Like it has at least as realistic and a good relationship to that.
Well, as a proud bisexual, I find that it is important to have these little glimmered moments of lipstick femme sexuality, like sapphic romance, even in the slightest sense, because I feel like even in my experience, people really want to relegate even same-sex female relationships as male female coded. So like one person has to be the man, one person has to be the woman. So one person has to lower their feminine attractive kind of way of expressing themselves in order to justify the relationship. And I think that having two feminine looking, lipstick lesbian type vibe, I think that's actually really progressive. And I think that was speaking to the 90s being like, and also them not being infantilized. Like they're not like in pigtails, they're not cheerleaders, like having like two consenting adults of equal attraction attracted to each other, I think is a very progressive thing.
It truly, like, and I don't want to give too many like flowers to this movie, but like, truly for a movie like this, and we've covered a lot of them at this point, like it is unusual for that to happen and for there to be any sort of agency with the female characters, and I do love like one of Jackie Lavelle's final lines in the movie is like, "Oh, an alien wants to make love to me. What the hell not?" Like she's like, "Hey, all right, let's go for it."
Yeah.
And like there was a nice moment earlier too where like there were a lot of moments where they could have set it up to be catty or like falsely dramatic or things like that. Like for example, the alien girl has an interest in Drew. And, she's like flirting with him and it looks like things are going to happen. But then she actually has a conversation with Jackie Lavelle's character and says, are you guys together? Am I stepping on your toes, basically? And she just says, no, we're, he's a great guy. We've had sex before. He's a good dude, but it didn't really work for us as a relationship, but you have fun. Like no baggage, no judgment. And I don't know. I was like, what? That's a nice moment. That's nice that they're just kind of like, at least taking a beat to acknowledge that. And to avoid any real kind of contrived, dramatic tangle ups,
No, because I mean, if you have those kind of contrived, dramatic tangle ups, then you need like an arc, you need acts, you need a story. Like,
the laziness
really
of the plot
concerned about that.
Well, this actually reminded me. I don't know if I'm saying the word correctly because I've only seen it written. But this reminded me a lot of, I did a study my senior year on the evolution of sexuality as a thesis for describing art and all these other things. And one of the things that I researched was bonobos or bonobos.
Bonobos,
like,
bonobos,
bonobos,
Who are like kind of closest to us in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, but they basically resolve all conflict with sex. So whenever I watch something like this, I just think about bonobos and how like, they were like, "Oh, you want food? You're hungry? Let's just have sex first, and then we'll have the food." You know what I mean? Like, and it's and that's what the movie is to me. It was like nobody has ill will. She is objectively there as a scientist to study things, so she doesn't want to mess with the science of it by like adding complication. So everything has to be like really copacetic, like really nice, super chill, and also because like everything is this hypnotic lull to this tuning fork of like sexual vibration that you don't want to get anybody out of the spell.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's kind of the vibe that this movie is operating off of, and I strongly prefer that than even to plot lines, heavy air quotes, of like more hardcore pornography, which does tend to follow like a soap opera trope or does emphasize more on like male dominance over females and things like that. And that's not the case here. I would argue all of the men in this movie are submissive to the women in a pretty great way. Like even the first, like the cheesy opening scene by the pool, that guy leaves, he goes to work, and then it's just like, oh, damn it. Okay. And then he like comes running back, it's like, because like, she requested it of him. And I think the women always have agency. The scene, I actually got a really decent sized laugh out of there's a scene at like the meditation center that turns into an orgy, because of course it does. But then the bad guy and a cop come in and they're trying to like rouse the whole place. And then the cop immediately gets entangled with 3 of the women.
Yeah.
And even the bad guy, he's like, oh, I gotta chase these women. Oh, but I gotta
get
a slow job first. Oh, damn it. Okay, well, give me 15 to 20 minutes and then I'm coming after you guys.
Like the cop, like not even slowing down, going from busting into the room to then being in a tryst with the 3 women was a really funny moment.
And his shirt was just like gone. It's like, where's your shirt?
Yeah.
It just melt off.
He got loved up. He got loved up like a horny toad.
He did. They turned it. We thought you was his fixing to fornicate.
Yeah. Well, you know, we've brought up a bunch of what I feel are interesting things about this movie. One is that there are a lot of the female agency, a lot of the interplay between the female characters, and also the volume of like sexual scenes and situations in this movie, which is pretty large considering the runtime. Like I said, like probably an hour of this 90-minute movie are sex scenes. And, you know, I took to a resource we don't always use on this show, which never fails, which is IMDb user reviews.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
and I will tell you that the general consensus of this movie, of people who IMDb reviewed this movie, say that they are fans of it as a hardcore. They think the sex scenes work, and especially like the same sex, particularly the last scene with Vanessa Taylor and Jackie Lavelle. They describe as being like a pretty effective scene. And I just think like there's not as many, a lot of times like movies like this, there are sort of review bombed. Like you might get a few people who are going to give it like a sincere review, like, oh, I watched this as a softcore and this kind of worked. And then you get people who are just going to drop 1s and 2s and be like, this is the worst shit I've ever seen in my life.
Sure.
And there's not as many of that for this. Like a lot of people seem to be looking at this with all the same descriptors that we are now. There's a lot of like 9s and 10s of being like, this is A+ softcore.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
you know what? I think it's because of the entry point. Like if you feel, hey, I'm about to drop some knowledge right here. If you feel alien to your own sexuality, watching an alien explore sexuality from the outside in and inside out is gonna feel pretty cathartic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically if you feel like we're in Aquarius season, and Aquarius says, I'm an Aquarius rising, are notoriously community minded, but feel very detached from reality and feel very alien. And I feel like this movie is sort of like, okay, let me just put you on a low simmer and you're gonna figure it out.
And that kind of brings us full circle a little bit to my early point, which is that are these movies in this regard, these Skinemax movies, for lack of a better word, are they aimed at people who are sort of like developing their sexual maturity rather than sexually mature people? And I think the alien thing in this movie in particular is a good entry point, because it's like, yeah, I am unfamiliar with these concepts myself. It's me seeing this for the first time on pay-per-view. You know, it's like I'm learning about this stuff as you're learning about this stuff. And maybe it's silly, maybe it's overblown. I can tell you now, as a 42-year-old looking back on it, yes, it is silly and overblown, but it does serve that kind of, I hesitate to use the word educational, but it does serve that kind of early foundational basis, you know, if you're on the page. I will say now, I'm watching this now in 2026 largely academically. Like I'm not I'm feeling particularly titillated by any of this, and a lot of it is just, you know, the way styles have changed, the very cheesy like 90s synth music of it. And oh my god, the song, there's only one time where you hear lyrics to a song, the most off-key caterwauling group. You're like, oh my god, I was just like screaming like pitchy.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's all very dated and very silly, and I was kind of watching it sort of with like my professorial specs on, you know. But if you told me that when I was 13, that like this forbidden movie that's behind the pay-per-view paywall that I'll never actually be able to see was a movie I would be dissecting like academically.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have believed you. Yeah.
And I told Asta yesterday, I said, my experience watching this really brought me back to the times when I was trying to watch these movies in secret, because I was watching it in the morning before my wife woke up, and literally sitting there with my notepad in my lap, a pen in one hand and the remote in the other hand, so that I could quickly hit the auxiliary button if for some reason someone else was to walk in the room. Because this, this is a you watch this by yourself movie.
Well, and for me, it's different for a woman to be watching this, because like if my husband walked in on me watching this, he'd be like, "Oh, what are we watching?" Like,
I started it with my fiance, and then we realized it's like it's like, oh, we should probably close the blinds actually, because like even though this, I can't really explain to people why I'm watching this right now. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I watched it fresh off of watching Bad Bunny in the halftime Super Bowl, and so I was already in this sort of like beaming like energy,
joyful
like,
mood,
joyful, like, yes, free sexuality. Because like, especially, I mean, yes, I agree with everything you were talking about the educational and remedial, but I also think like I have a very high cine taste, or whatever, but I still love to watch like Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and I still love to kind of go backwards to stuff that doesn't put my brain in knots in a way that adds anxiety to my life. So sometimes watching something like this, it's sort of like, my husband took me for a couples massage today, and we were just mostly talking about how great it was to turn our brains off for an hour and just like let somebody else like work our body. And like, she kept lifting my legs up and slamming them on the mat and like doing all the stuff. And I was just like, this is nice. I don't have to do that.
you're talking to the kings of the erratic letterbox. If you look through my letterbox list of like movies that are, I keep a list of the movies that are new to me that I see every year. The last 3 that you'll see on there are You Were Never Really Here, the Lynn Ramsey film, Femalien, and Transylvania 65000. Like, so it's a real roller coaster of high art to low art and everything in between. So like I think we both really appreciate that sort of elasticity in our filmographies. Yeah, and you should. I mean, everybody should watch everything. Like you should watch every movie, you should watch every type of genre, every type of director, like good, bad, in between, because you learn something from everything.
Yeah,
you could probably skip some Kevin Sorbo movies.
Yeah, and honestly, you could have skipped Transylvania 65000. But
well, I was gonna squeeze in a little plug. Speaking of Hello, I think it will have come out by the time this comes out, but I am in the new Tales from Beyond the Pale, directed by Ted Gagan, produced by Larry Fessenden and Jordan, and it's got a very special guest. And by the time this comes out, this will be public knowledge, but it's got Joe Bob Briggs.
Hell yeah.
And I basically get to play a teenager in the 80s in a mall horror themed, like capitalism is going to consume us all kind of story.
Love it.
And like, it brought me so much joy as a human being to be able to talk to Joe Bob about how like watching Monster Vision, like, indirectly led me to my husband, because like I wouldn't have auditioned for a trauma film that led me to him. And we both are like liberal arts, classically trained actors, but we both love ourselves a B movie because of this very thing. It's massaging the brain.
And people don't know Asta's husband is Toxie. I don't know if people are aware, but like she married not the actor. She married the real Toxic Avenger.
I married the Toxic Avenger, aka Clay Von Karlowitz, brilliant man. But he actually has a great letterbox review for his performance in Return to Nukem High, in which someone says, "This is probably the most acting I've ever seen."
I love that. I love that.
As Eugene in Clay Von Karlowitz's performance as Eugene is the most.
Listen, there's no better way to quantify an amount of acting, right? Like, this is, of all the acting I've ever seen, this is the most.
It's the Eddie Redmayne School of Theater. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But you know what? Like, I just like I love watching movies like Femalien, because I feel like you get to see a postcard from the time. Like, okay, so they were looking at like lingerie catalogs. They were looking at like, you know, a Beverly Hills 90210. They were, you know, they were like looking at all these cultural things. And just like Christmas movies, they were like, how do we make Sleepless in Seattle a Christmas movie? How do we make, you know, A Man Who Fell to Earth like a woman and she just wants to see everyone have sex? Because I mean, I saw like Poor Things. That was Frankenhooker.
Oh, this is basically just under the skin.
That was Femalien.
Yeah, I was gonna say Jonathan Glazer's definitely seen this movie.
Yeah, like it's the same look, the same hair. I mean, exactly the same, and it's like basically the same plot, just in a very consumptive, all-consuming, violent way.
That's kind of my favorite little mini subgenre of movies, which is like the high art version of low art, like kind of how like Punch Drunk Love is like the high art version of like Happy Gilmore, you know, like it kind of is a stunted man child who goes into fits of rage, who is still played by Adam Sandler. And it's like that's just Billy Madison. That's just Happy Gilmore. Like, but it's just beautifully shot. Yeah.
We're all telling the same stories over and over again. And I think, you know, like I studied with Thomas Pratke when I went to study abroad in London, and he was a pedagogue of Jacques Lecoq, who does this Lecoq movement. And he made us do this exercise about like the hero of all heroes, and like, you know, arriving from the ocean onto the beach, into the forest, up to the mountain, and it's like the symbols of different life and being the hero of all heroes. And then we studied like Joseph Campbell and like all the stuff. And like at the end of the day, that's what Star Wars is. That's what Femalien is. It's just like putting a person outside of their comfort zone and making them explore unknown and uncharted ass.
Yeah.
I mean, in this case,
in this particular case, yes, of course.
Well,
just
I'm
like
super looking forward. I'm super looking forward to the Tales from Beyond the Pale, because the new season of those that have come out with Emily Bennett's episode and Jen Wexler's episode,
and Joe DiMaggio.
Yes.
Oh, John DiMaggio did it. Oh, amazing.
There's amazing. They've been so good. The production value is great. The voice acting is great. I'm really looking forward to Ted's with you, Asta and Joe Bob, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And so definitely anybody listening to this show, go seek out Tales from Beyond the Pale if you're not already listening to it. That episode that Asta described should also be out, as well as the ones from before. Plus there's also like 50 old ones. So there's a lot of them. So
Blackout was an episode.
Yes, that's true. I forgot that, actually. And if you go through that back catalog, you're going to find something to love, I'm sure. And I'll get into the plug for how to, help us promote our show and things that we've got going on. But I do just want to say, this is usually Steve's part. I'm kind of like stepping all over him here.
Please, no.
But I was, it was a real gamble in terms of like where this episode was going to go, because I think you can handle covering a movie like this a number of different ways. And I say this sincerely, and it's not because I was just with you yesterday, Asta, but like, this was what I think maybe my favorite way that we could have possibly talked about a movie like this. I think this was a fantastic conversation, and I went in so many different like directions that I don't think any listeners could necessarily predict when they press play in the beginning of it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone thought Meisner technique was coming up in this one. Yeah.
Well, those always make for some of our best episodes, is when we have these conversations that I don't want to say go off the rails, because there is a point to why we're bringing up things we're bringing up, and we bring it back around again. But hopefully if you sought this out because you were like, wow, somebody's finally talking about Femalien, I hope we did it justice for you. And if you're someone who just found the show because of the Charles Band connection, we hope you enjoyed this, and definitely go back and listen to the other 160 episodes in our archive for all of those. And if this was your first time, or if you're someone who's been listening from the very beginning, thanks for coming back again. And the best thing that you can do for us is to go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening, and leave a 5-star rating, maybe a brief review, if you feel so inclined to do so. Asta, really quickly, just I'll get to our socials for the show in a second, but if people want to keep up with you, the Tales from Beyond the Pale, and other stuff that you've got going on, where can they find you?
My name, Asta Paredes, Asta Paredes. I'm that on everything, including Instagram. I have a dead Twitter account I don't use, so sorry. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Upscrolled. I have a website, astaparedes.com. You can Google me pretty successfully.
Hey.
And I have also old archive podcasts, the Chatting with Asta, if you ever want to listen to some pretty cool indie folks on there.
Nice.
And that's pretty much me.
Amazing. And as you very well know by this point, listeners, you can keep up with us by, you can email us at puppetmasterscastlefreaks@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or concerns. But to keep up with us on like a weekly basis, the best way to do that is Instagram at puppetmasters_castlefreaks. You can also follow me at _Giallo_Jared. Now, Steve, in addition to this other podcast you talk about, you've also got another gig that isn't brand new by the time people are hearing this, but it's the first time since we've been like recording where you can plug this also.
Yeah.
So I feel like you've got something else you're involved in. So please tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I am now one of the contributing writers at Macabre Daily with a lot of our friends over there, meaning I get to do a lot of awesome movie reviews and work with Matt and Sean and Brian, all those cool guys. There's a whole bunch of cool people working there. It's been really delightful so far and very exciting to get to break into that. And thank you so much to all of them for tossing some work my way and letting me write about stuff that I'm passionate about, which has been very, very important for me and very transformative for me in a lot of ways. So, well,
you're passionate about movies and video games. So what other show have you got going on?
Well, that was a seamless segue too. That was really good. I also have a show called Cinema Arcade. That's cinema and arcade mashed together into one big, beautiful portmanteau. That's what we're talking about. We are doing watching movies and then playing the video games based on those movies to see how they contrast, compare, detract from each other. As of this recording, we're way behind where we currently are. But as of this recording, we just did an episode on Stargate. We've got an episode coming up on Nacho Libre, the Jack Black movie. We've got an episode coming up on Godzilla, which is going to be really, really fun. Bunch of weird stuff coming up. I have no idea where we're going to be at March, but that is okay. Tune in to Cinema Arcade wherever you find your podcasts, and you can find out. And then tune in to us as well, because next week we are going to be talking about a movie that we've talked about. Oh, never mind. We're not talking about a movie we talked about, but maybe that's a little tease for you guys out there. We are actually talking about, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the most recent full moon movie, the very, very newest one, which would be, I think, have come out just a few weeks ago as of when you all are listening to this. But we're going to be talking about the movie Prompt, which is another AI fueled horror movie from this current era. Is this a noir? Is this a pulp noir movie? Is this part of that label, or is this kind of a different thing?
I have to look into it. This is one of those ones that kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I feel like the pulp noir stuff was announced in advance, and like I feel like because maybe Charles Band felt I need to make a statement on AI and use of AI, this movie was maybe fast tracked after the pulp noir was already established as a sub-label. So I don't think it is. I could be wrong about that. I'll look into it obviously when we, do our research and get ready to record the episode, but I don't think it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will find out a little bit more about that when we talk about Prompt next week. Thank you so much, Asta, for being here. This was a delight, and we had a whole bunch of time. So, I'm sorry. I do have to teleport back to my mothership. I've got a cliffhanger threesome waiting for me, apparently. Also, yeah, we have to mention this movie ends on a threesome of a cliffhanger, or a threesome cliffhanger, and I don't think that's ever paying off. But hey, we have
sequels.
We have 4 more Femalien movies
to cover
down the line, so we will find out. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Next week.
See you next time, everyone. Take care.